This conference will now be recorded.
Can anyone hear me on here? It's Sherry.
Yes, we can hear you, Sherry.
My camera, my computer is saying it's not detecting the camera today. I shut it down and started it back up again.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Deputy Mayor Andrews, it's Josh here. Just in the settings of GoToMeeting, did you try that drop-down menu just to look at the just where you select the webcam?
Yeah, it says a webcam is missing. Plug in a
okay.
webcam or check that your webcam is completely plugged in. So I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll follow up with you after the meeting.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening. For roll call, everyone is in attendance, and we'll now take a moment of reflection and respect, please. Thank you. The first item up is the confirmation of the agenda.
That council adopts the agenda for the meeting of August 9th, 2021 as presented.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second, Councillor Barber and Councillor Chapman. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, I do have to ask the clerk, since Deputy Mayor Andrews, I can't see her hand, is verbal okay, or are we going to have to take a recorded vote?
Through your worship, in accordance with the procedure bylaw, it really is up to the discretion of the chair. To this point, we've operated using verbal commands, if that's acceptable to you this evening.
Okay, it is acceptable. I just thought I'd ask. So Deputy Mayor Andrews, I'll have to ask you if it's yes or no. I apologize, but since we can't see your hand. So all those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, and that's carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest this evening? Okay, seeing none, we will be moving into delegations and public meetings. Council will recess to commence the Committee of Adjustment meeting. And the resolution for that, please.
That council recess at 5:32 p.m. to commence a Committee of Adjustment hearing to consider application 0621 submitted by Aldo Rempel, owner of property known municipally as 110 St. Andrew Street in the town of Elmer.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Charlton and Councillor Ham. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Yes.
And that's carried. Thank you. The Committee of Adjustment of the Town of Aylmer is convened to consider application A0621. Additional information relating to the applications is available for inspection between 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. weekdays at Aylmer Town Hall. Signed written submissions shall be accepted by the Secretary Treasurer prior to or during the hearing, and such submissions shall be available for inspection by any interested party. In addition, if a party who is notified does not attend the hearing, the committee can proceed and the party is not entitled to any further notice of hearings. A copy of the decision will be mailed to those persons who attend or are represented at the hearing, and those who have filed a written request with the secretary for notice of the committee's decision. The committee will receive input in the following order: agent or applicant, the public, manager of planning and development, and the clerk. Application number A0621 is made by Aldo Rempel, the owner of the property known municipally as 110 St. Andrew Street in the town of Aylmer. The applicant is requesting a minor variance from the requirements of the town zoning bylaw number 5799 as amended. The applicant is seeking relief from section 3(1)(b) lot coverage to increase the maximum lot coverage to 78 square meters or 840 square feet, which would result in a lot coverage of approximately 8% for accessory uses on the subject property. The proposed size of the accessory building is approximately 30% greater than the permitted area of 60 square meters or 645.8 square feet. Is the applicant or agent present? And if so, do you wish to speak to the application?
Through your worship, through the chair rather, the applicant agent is not present this evening.
Okay, thank you. Could the clerk confirm whether or not any members of the public wish to speak to the application?
Through you, Madam Chair, there was no request received from the public to speak to the application.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll turn this over. Could the manager of planning and development provide comments about the application? So I'll turn it over to Christy, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, the application submitted by Mr. Rempel would facilitate the construction of an accessory building to be used as a shop with a attached lean-to in the rear yard of his property at 110 St. Andrew Street in Aylmer. Specifically, Mr. Rempel is seeking relief from the provisions for lot coverage for accessory uses. So in this case, our provisions which govern the amount of area you're allowed to cover, or basically the size of your building, are referred to as lot coverage. In this case, the maximum lot coverage for the accessory use is 60 square meters, as previously indicated, and Mr. Rempel is proposing to construct his structure with an area of 78 square meters. The intent of restricting lot coverage or size of accessory buildings is to ensure that they remain subordinate to the principal use of the site, which is the single detached dwelling in this case. So the notice was circulated in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. No comments were received from applicable agencies. We did not hear anything from neighbors within 60 meters, and a sign was posted on the lands, and we can confirm that. No concerns regarding this proposal have been brought forward to staff. So minor variances under the Planning Act are subject to 4 tests. Upon review of these and with rationale outlined within the staff report, I'm satisfied that the 4 tests are met. Based on this, I'm recommending that application A0621 be approved by the committee, subject to the following condition: that the eaves and trough be installed on the detached accessory building to direct stormwater away from lot lines, and this be completed to the satisfaction of the town. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there questions? Councillor Barber. You're muted, Councillor Barber.
Sometimes me being muted is a good thing, but not now. Anyway, Madam Chair, to Christy, if I may. It's unusual to have that type of a condition, directing the water away from the lot lines, where there'd normally be a swale to naturally drain the properties. Can you explain why, in this case, that condition was inserted?
For you, Madam Chair, if I may. So
Yes,
this condition is based on consultation with the chief building official. We've come across a few instances where eaves and troughs have been installed historically on accessory buildings and directed towards the property line, and it's resulting in overland flow to neighboring properties and some property erosion. So not all lots are graded to a swale, and neighboring properties have a right to restrict overland flow onto their properties. So Between myself and CBO Heemstra, we've come up with this condition so that overland flow from these accessory buildings, especially when they're of an increased size, are fully contained within the subject property.
A follow-up to that, if I may, then we would expect to see this condition regularly now? Would that be fair?
If I may, Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, that would be my recommendation. So it was prepared in consultation with the CBO based on other best practices of surrounding municipalities and my past experience. So this is something that I would hope we can implement moving forward.
Thank you.
Councillor Oslach?
Yes, Your Worship, to Christie. I don't think there's enough room between the lot line and the building to create a swale. But I don't know the number of feet or the scale of this map, but it doesn't look like there's enough area to create a swale.
So if I may?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So through you, Chair, the proposed building will meet the required setbacks, which for an accessory building is only 1.2 meters, which is three feet. So it can be quite close to the property line, which is why we want the eaves and trough to be directing it away from the property line, because there may not be space for that swale, and there does not appear to be one currently in existence.
Go ahead, Councillor Charlton.
Through you, Madam Chair, of course, we all realize if there is enough water, it will run downhill, not uphill. So eaves troughs and downspouts work to a certain extent, but if the land is not graded properly, it will find its way onto neighboring properties. Thank you.
Are there any further comments or questions from the committee? Okay, I don't see any hands. Deputy Mayor Andrews, do you have any questions? I don't think we've got. Can you hear me, Deputy Mayor Andrews? Okay. Has the clerk received any communications related to this application?
Through you, Madam Chair, no communications have been received related to this application.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll get a mover and a seconder, and then we will open up again for some more questions or comments. So someone to move and someone to second. Oh, sorry, I'm ahead of myself. We better read the resolution first. I'm sorry, clerk. I'm getting ahead of myself here.
Through you, Madam Chair, that report, Plan 0421, entitled Planning Evaluation Report, Application for Minor Variance, File A0621, 110 St. Andrew Street, be received by the Committee of Adjustment for information, and that application for minor variance A0621 to permit an accessory use with a maximum lot coverage of 78 meters squared be approved, subject to the following condition: that eaves and trough be installed on the detached accessory building to direct stormwater away from lot lines to the satisfaction of the town.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll ask someone to move in second. Councillor Oslach, and I don't see anybody else. Councillor Barber. Okay, so with that, I'm going to open it up to more comments and questions or any of that might be concerning to you before we vote on this. Councillor Chapman.
Through you, Your Worship, to Christie. Is there any indication what he proposes to use this shop for?
If I may respond, Your Worship?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I believe he is just using it for a shop. The part that really sets the size over the maximum criteria is an attached lean-to structure. So unfortunately, once there's a roof on the structure, it is considered part of the building area. So in this case, had the shop just been a standalone, it would have met the criteria. However, because of this attached lean-to portion, which is to be used for just some covered area, it was exceeding the maximum square footage.
Okay, so it through you, your worship. So it's not just the structure, it's with the lean-to together, the two. Okay,
Yes, that's correct.
thank you.
Okay, any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, and that's carried. Thank you. Okay, so now we need a resolution for adjournment.
The Committee of Adjustment hearing is adjourned at 5:44 p.m.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Charlton. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And now we require a resolution to reconvene council.
That the council meeting be reconvened at 5:44 p.m.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Ham. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, the next item up is adoption of council and committee minutes.
Council approves the following minutes. Regular virtual meeting of council held on July 12th, 2021.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Charlton and Councillor Ham. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Yes.
And that's carried. Thank you. The next item up is the consent agenda.
That item 7.1 to 7.20 of the August 9th, 2021 consent agenda be adopted as presented with actions to be taken as noted.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Barber and Councillor Chapman. Are there any questions or concerns with the consent agenda? Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can we have a little staff background on 7.6 potential shared services, human resources? Is there any advantage to Elmer on this conceived position?
Okay, Andy, would you care to answer Councillor Barber's question, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. Elmer has decided not to participate in this shared service opportunity. There are other municipalities where there is a potential larger benefit. We have Marianne here, and my predecessor Jennifer also took a lot of time and effort in making sure we had adequate HR policies and processes in place. So we're on fairly firm footing right now in terms of HR and don't really need the support. Some of the other municipalities do, though. One thing that may occur is in the future, we might look at it when an opportunity arises, but at this point, it isn't something that we really require.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Are there any further concerns or questions about the consent agenda this evening? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Yes. And
that's carried. Thank you. So we'll move into action items. So the first report up is Plan 0521.
That report, Plan 0521, entitled Planning Evaluation Report, Application for Consent to Sever, number E6221, regarding 29 Linden Street, be received for information, and that the application for consent to sever, number E6221, relating to the property located at Part Lot Southside North Street and Part Lot 7 Southside North Street and Part Lot 8 Southside North Street, Plan 164, and known municipally as 29 Linden Street, be supported, with recommended conditions for reasons set out in this report, and that this report be forwarded to the Land Division Committee for its review and consideration.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Charlton and Councillor Chapman. Christy, did you want to give a bit more information to us, please?
Yes, Your Worship. So the application before you this evening is an application for consent to sever. The application will be heard at Land Division at the August 25th meeting. So the application applies to the lands at 29 Linden Street, and the application was submitted by John Fair. The application is proposing to create one new residential lot, which will result in a total of 2 lots as illustrated on the key map. There's currently a semi-detached dwelling under construction with 2 units, and the intent of the severance is to accommodate each of the units on independent lots. So we've seen something similar to this in the past. It's just the 1 lot being split to accommodate the semi. The application was reviewed against the County of Elgin's official plan and the town's official plan, and I'm satisfied that the proposal aligns with the policy direction contained within. Upon review of the zoning bylaw, it was noted that once severed, or to facilitate the severance, there would be insufficient lot frontage, lot area, lot coverage, and a variance from these regulations would be required to facilitate. You may note previously, Mr. Fair came to the Committee of Adjustment to seek relief from the provisions of the zoning bylaw to facilitate construction of his semi. And in the same case, he required relief from lot frontage, lot area, lot coverage. However, it applied to the land as a whole. So based on this evaluation, I'm recommending that council offer support for the application with the following recommended conditions of approval. That the applicant initiate and assume all planning costs associated with the required minor variance application, with such costs to be paid in full to the town, and that the required process be successfully completed prior to the conditions being deemed fulfilled. So if supported by the Land Division Committee, Mr. Fair would have a year to satisfy his conditions, in which time he would be making that application to the Committee of Adjustment at the town. Second condition, the owners provide confirmation of location of any existing overhead or underground services installed to the retained and severed lots. The services cannot traverse the adjoining lots, and any conflicts must be redirected or an easement created. This is just a condition being recommended for due diligence. We want to ensure that each lot is independently serviced, that an electronic version of the reference plan be submitted to the satisfaction of the town of Aylmer. This condition is included so that we can maintain our digital records. And finally, that the clerk of the town advises Secretary Treasurer of the Land Division Committee that all requirements of the town of Aylmer have been complied with. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you, Christy. Are there any questions for Christy? Councillor Charlton?
For your worship, so is this another example of the cart's gone before the horse? Everything's kind of built. If this doesn't get approved, what happens then?
May I respond, Your Worship?
Yes, go ahead, Christy.
So this is an instance where Mr. Fair has permission to construct the semi-detached on the single lot. So it would just be the form of tenure that would change. So severing the lots to create 2 individual lots means that they could be freehold and independently owned and purchased and owned. Whereas if they remain on 1 lot, you wouldn't be able to sell the units individually. Where a little bit of foresight could have assisted was when we varied the requirements for lot frontage, lot area, and lot coverage for the semi-detached dwelling on a full parcel. We could have further amended those regulations to apply also to 1/2 of a semi-detached dwelling per the zoning bylaw. So unfortunately, that application is come and gone and been approved, so a new application process would be required. But hopefully moving forward, when we see these types of proposals, we can contemplate all the necessary variances within a single application.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Did someone else have their hand up? I apologize. Did I miss anybody? Okay, let's vote again. Sorry. Could you vote again? All those in favor?
Yes.
And that's carried. Thank you. I do apologize. I'm having a few difficulties this evening, so please bear with me with my computer. The next action item is Fire 0621.
That report, Fire 0621, entitled Aylmer Fire Department Burn Bylaw, be received for information.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. That'd be Councillor Oslage and Councillor Chapman. And I'll turn this over to the fire chief, and maybe you can give us a little bit more information, please.
Certainly. Thank you, Your Worship. Again, good evening, Council. Thank you for letting me come before you today. The current bylaw, I'm hoping everybody had a chance to look at it. And as we discussed earlier, the current burn bylaw has been in place since 2008, and it reflects the needs and circumstance of that time. Through review, we've identified a few gaps and we've updated the bylaw to reflect the current needs of the community and hopefully future needs as well. The current burn bylaw allows for open air burn permits within the town of Aylmer's limits. An open air burn consists of a large fire in a resident's backyard, open air burning, meaning it's not confined, it's just a pile. This pile can include brush, clean wood, wood products, cardboard, garden waste, vegetation, and as I mentioned, the flame is open to the air. Most of these materials are now recyclable and disposed of other means through the town services, and therefore the fire department feels the need for these items to be burned is no longer appropriate with respect to environmental concerns. The updated bylaw removes this permit process totally. The proposed bylaw allows residents to have small, controlled, and supervised open air recreational fires anytime through the day to 12 midnight, at which time these fires must be extinguished. These type of recreational fires must be no larger than 2 feet by 2 feet, must be in a contained site and always supervised. Residents having an open air recreational fire must have a means of extinguishing that fire on their site, meaning water, a shovel, a fire extinguisher. If that fire causes any form of a nuisance to a neighbor, a resident, reduces vision on any of our roadways, or any other form of discomfort is caused to anyone, the fire must be extinguished immediately. The current bylaw does not address any new fire safety issues, much like we just spoke about the sky lanterns. Sky lanterns are those type of a lantern with a balloon with an actual burning fire underneath that were released free into the sky. And the heat from the fire gives the balloon lift. Unfortunately, what goes up usually comes down. This new bylaw eliminates anyone from using a sky lantern within the town of Aylmer. The proposed open air bylaw meets the requirements of the Ontario Fire Code as well as the Fire Protection Prevention Act. This report has no financial impact. This report also serves the goals and objectives set out as our council's strategic pillars, particularly Pillar 5, which is public service excellence, delivering municipal services in a safe and effective manner, and ensuring public safety through appropriate resources. Again, for the reasons I've listed, we reviewed the open air bylaw and we've taken into account future residential growth in the town of Aylmer to fit that need. The proposed bylaw addresses fire safety concerns of large open air burning fires within the community and eliminates that threat, and also eliminates the threat of sky lanterns. It poses a safe burning of recreational fires and residential backyards, which we support as we've all gone through a trying time right now. We feel if a family can enjoy that with friends as things get back to normal, and it's done in a safe manner with all the regulations set forth, we hope that council supports this decision. This is respectably submitted by your fire chief. Thank you. I'll answer any questions, your worship.
Thank you very much for that report. Are there any questions for the fire chief? Councillor Charlton.
Through your worship, to the chief. So if there is an issue, how's it dealt with? Do people phone the fire department? They phone the Aylmer police, or what's the protocol there?
Through your worship, councillor, any of the above. Bylaw can address bylaw issues, which this will fall under. They can call 911. Our fire officers know how to deal with this as well. They can call Aylmer Police. So we have three lines of defense to back up this process.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any further questions or comments concerning this report? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Yes.
And that's carried. Thank you. And thank you, Chief.
Thank you, your worship. Thanks, council.
Okay, the next item up is FIN 0221.
That report, Finance 0221, entitled Banking Services Contract Extension, be received for information and that council consider giving 3 readings to the bylaw authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute a 1-year extension of the banking services agreement for the town of Aylmer with the Bank of Montreal.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Ham. It's pretty straightforward. I was just wondering, Heather, do you have any further comments to share with council? You've got a pretty good report here, but
I just wanted to add that we'll be able to actually complete the full RFP probably next summer. So that's why I'm just asking for 1-year extension for this.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Yes.
And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, the next report is CAO 4021.
That report, CAO 4021, respecting policy amendments, conference and seminars, membership fees, tuition reimbursement, be received as information, and that council approve the proposed amendments to the town's policies 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Charlton. Andy, did you want to give any more information about this report? Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's important to start this report by highlighting that it isn't being brought forward due to any incidents of abuse. This is an update to tighten up some policies that have not been amended in over 15 years. The proposed amendments have some significant clawbacks upon what employees could have previously claimed. So for conferences, that means the town is no longer covering cab fare, tips, or hospitalities. In addition, we are placing some pressure to try to avoid overnight stays for conferences in places like London or Brantford, as our hope is that staff will incur mileage instead. When staff do stay overnight, we're looking to encourage them to travel on the first or last day to the conference to save money. In terms of meals or per diems, there's a reduced amount for conferences that provide a meal. Travel time to and from conferences or training is not paid for by the municipality. And as we're looking to encourage staff to commute, there may be a need for our employees to still grab some food before or after. So we didn't want to totally do away with it when there is lunch being provided at a conference. Nothing within the policy limits employees spending more than their per diem. However, we're only reimbursing them up to the set amount. By comparison, Elgin County provides a daily per diem of $75. So we do think the proposed $60 is a very spendthrift approach. In terms of education, tuition, and memberships, we're proposing instituting a 6-month reimbursement clause. This means that anyone signing up for training would be required to repay the town if they left within 6 months of completion. This is a fairly generous approach, as many organizations have a 2-year or more approach. With the other changes, though, we don't want to be implementing anything that would have a chilling effect on staff betterment. Aylmer is obviously a learning organization, and that is key to the town being able to attract all the employee talent that we have. Again, to highlight, we did not encounter any issues with abuse leading up to these changes. I mentioned that as I was like to avoid a headline in the Express stating something like Aylmer stops bankrolling booze at conferences. The reality is that scenario was likely so outlandish that no one ever sought to include it in this policy. Aylmer staff are very ethical, and in my opinion, many of them are likely actually passing up opportunities to collect per diems or mileage on a routine basis. We do anticipate a significant uptick in training and conference attendance in 2022. That's just because it's been so low for the last 2 years because of COVID. And with that, I will try to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Andy. Are there any questions for Andy? Councillor Barber?
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of council have never historically been encouraged to upgrade their education by attending seminars. Would this perhaps be an opportunity to include members of council in this particular bylaw when and if there's an appropriate conference to be attended or a training session, that the guidelines for reimbursement of cost are already outlined?
That's through your worship. That's a great question. There is actually a separate policy 9.4 that relates to council members directly, and it ties into these other ones. So these would also apply to council members. It's just the amount. I think there's a different frequency that councillors can attend conferences compared to staff.
Well, thank you for that update. Never having used it, it just new. That's to me anyway. Thank you.
I'll circulate it to council members so you're aware of the 9.4 as well.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, the next item up is CAO 4221.
That report CAO 4221 respecting declaration of emergency be received for information, and that council direct the town of Aylmer's state of emergency related to COVID-19 expire concurrently with the expiration of the provincial state of emergency or Elgin County state of emergency, whichever is first.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Barber and Councillor Ham. Are there any questions or comments? This is a pretty self-explanatory report, but we'll open up. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none. Oh, sorry, Councillor Charlton. Did you have a question?
Through your worship. So this could go on even for another year or longer?
Andy, would you care to answer that question?
Sure. Through your worship, I don't think it would go on that long, but it would be whatever the provincial, whenever the provincial order is lifted, which would likely be before the provincial election next June. I can't see them going into the election still in an emergency state, but yeah, I think there will be significant pressure when COVID-19 is over for municipalities to lift it. There was some discussion on whether or not people would do it in August. But that was kind of because of fear of the fourth wave or potential fourth wave. People are now waiting to see what will happen in September when kids return to school. But I think everybody is hoping that the state of emergency at least is behind us before the end of this year.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Yes.
And that's carried. Thank you. The next item up is report CAO 4321.
That report CAO 4321 respecting grant application Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program Greenstream Stage 2 be received as information, and that council endorse the submission of an application to the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program Greenstream Stage 2 for the replacement of the existing water tower.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Oslach. Andy, did you have any further highlights you want to share with council on this report?
Thank you, Mayor French. I'll keep it brief. This report is to seek council support for the ICIP Greenstream Phase 2 application for replacement water tower. To highlight, staff have spent a lot of time on this, notably Josh, Chelsea, Heather, and Rob. So we really appreciate them pulling together and getting this underway. It's a huge undertaking to get an application of this nature completed between July 12th and September 9th, but I'm confident that we're going to be putting our best foot forward. As mentioned in the report, we're looking to bring council back for a special meeting during the last week of August to award the RFP for an environmental assessment consultant upon this project. Although this isn't essential for the project, there did seem to be a number of municipalities putting forward projects that are more detailed in scope, but significantly less far along than ours. So I believe one of the biggest strengths of our project will be that the town intends to proceed with it regardless of grant funding in 2022 or 2023. It's important to highlight that the town was unsuccessful for a refurbishment grant in stage 1 of the ICIP. We're hopeful that our new approach to replace the existing water storage facility is successful, Success will be highly dependent upon how many municipalities with populations under 100,000 can allocate the resources to get a grant application done over the summer, as Elmer has. So we've really put a lot of attention and focus on trying to pull this together and get it done. And with that, I'll try to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Are there any questions for Andy on this report? Councillor Charlton?
So we missed out on the first round. We're applying for the second. If we are unsuccessful, will there be a third? And the work that will be done in anticipation of being successful in phase 2, will that put us in good stead for phase 3, if there is such a thing, or will we have to start all over again?
Through you, Your Worship, that is a terrific question. I believe this is the last shot. From what I'm hearing from elsewhere is that after this, the grant pool will start drying up a bit as the government moves from funding to realizing how much money they've spent over the last 2 years. And so I think that is the anticipation that this will be the last big attempt that we have at this. But that doesn't mean that if this project doesn't go ahead, something else might not come down the pipe. But I think it's more realistic that if we don't win this, we're on our own, and then we would focus on developing a grant for the lagoon expansions or something of that nature to try for that next time.
Through Your Worship, if I may,
Yes.
I like your choice of words. Things coming down the pipe, grant programs drying up. Well put. Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions or comments concerning this report? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item up is Report Clerk 3121.
That Report Clerk 3121 entitled Compressed Workweek Plan Endorsement be received for information, and that Council endorses the Compressed Workweek Plan and HR Policy number 11 as presented, and that Council directs staff to take all necessary actions to facilitate implementation of the Compressed Workweek Plan effective September 13th, 2021 for a trial period until July 2022, and further that Council directs staff to undertake the necessary communications and operational actions to extend the Town Hall Administration office hours from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday to Friday, to extend those to 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday, effective September 13th, 2021.
Thank you, Josh. Someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Charlton and Councillor Ham. And I'll turn this over to you, Josh, if you'd like to elaborate on this report, please.
Certainly, through Your Worship and 2 members of Council, at the May 3rd, 2021 regular meeting, a resolution was passed endorsing a compressed work week in principle. By endorsing this compressed work week concept in principle, it justified staff taking time to prepare a formal work plan for consideration at a future meeting. And following that direction, staff assembled a working group to consider strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of a potential compressed work week arrangement. With the foremost goal of this process being to enhance levels of service and employee productivity at no cost to the corporation, while also demonstrating a commitment to supporting the growth and well-being of town employees. So in terms of strengths and opportunities, Council will recall that the key benefits included the improvement of corporate recruitment and retention practices, improved employee morale in light of widespread challenges brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, a reduction in scheduled absenteeism, improved environmental sustainability, enhanced succession planning, creation of an organizational redundancy to avoid unforeseen disruptions, and an increase in service level for the community as a result of the office being open for an additional 5 hours per week at no extra cost. In terms of these strengths and opportunities, it's been concluded by staff throughout this research process that there would be both long-term and short-term benefits realized by the community. This conclusion is supported by the relevant domestic and international academic literature, which tends to unanimously support a positive relationship between organizational productivity and employee morale. It is worth noting at this point that staff have heard positive feedback regarding prospects of an extra full hour of availability during the day at no cost, especially during busy times of the year, such as tax installment due dates and the construction season, which is currently underway. While the working group considered the strengths and weaknesses brought on by the proposed plan, a much more thorough emphasis was actually placed on solving the identified weaknesses and threats. More specifically, the working group considered best practices of other organizations. We consulted academic literature, and just moving down here, and we circulated a staff information package and survey to address risks of customer service related disruptions, logistical and human resources related challenges, and overall management of program perception in the community. So some of the solutions for managing potential weaknesses and threats of the transition while preserving clear benefits that are brought on by a compressed work week have been integrated into the HR policy number 11, which is attached to this report for council consideration. Key points of note within that policy include an overview of the current and proposed working arrangement and detailed operating procedures for the administration of vacation and lieu time, sick time, bereavement leave, statutory holidays, and obviously the maintenance of business continuity and coverage, which is paramount. As council will recall, the compressed work week is achieved through staff working the standard 35-hour work week in 4 days rather than 5. So there's the same number of working hours each week. It's just done in a compressed amount of time. Other adjustments of note include a start time of 8 a.m. versus the current 8:30 a.m., half an hour lunch break versus the current hour lunch break, and an end time of 5 p.m. instead of 4:30 p.m. Ensuring that no service or program related disruptions would be experienced as a result of the transition was really the main focus in terms of addressing potential weaknesses and threats. And with the primary goal of enhancing levels of service and productivity at no cost to the town, a two-team approach has been proposed to address this. So by pairing employees with overlapping and complementary knowledge, skill sets, and responsibilities, it can be ensured that there is no impact on productivity or business continuity when staff are out of office. That's our key concern. Throughout this proposed arrangement, some of the constructive byproducts of the two-team approach include the creation of redundancy within the corporation. So we've got more staff that are able to undertake similar responsibilities. We are looking to develop talent internally through that same mechanism. And we would also be looking at enhanced interdepartmental cohesion through some of these revised processes and creation of redundancy. And furthermore, corporate modernization initiatives that council will be well familiar with, including the implementation of an electronic and document management system, Laserfiche, which is currently underway, assists with ensuring adequate coverage. So more specifically, the formalization and standardization of town business processes and increased use of web forms, social media, et cetera, have better allowed staff to already cross-train and become familiar outside of their specific business unit. And that being said, the pandemic has changed the way that residents engage with the town, and staff and council have taken significant steps to ensure that modernized service delivery improves customer service and overall satisfaction at the user level. A major element to this transition is ensuring that the organization doesn't rely on one specific staff member exclusively to manage a business area, but instead a collection of staff that are cross-trained and that are able to jointly deliver high-quality programs and services to the town. And I'm just going to provide one quick example here. In the proposed work arrangement, the chief building official and the manager of planning and development are counterparts. So on Monday, if the planner happened to be out of the office as a result of the compressed work week, the CBO would be capable and expected to respond to all urgent planning inquiries. And for less urgent planning inquiries, staff have set up intake workflows to facilitate the receipt of planning applications, provide responses to general planning inquiries, and also the administrative assistant special projects manager has been fully cross-trained on responding to simple zoning inquiries. So I think the point we're trying to make here is that while the manager of planning and CBO positions are entirely distinct from one another, they are similar enough that the coverage provided by either staff member would sufficiently maintain business continuity in the other's absence. And just moving down here, some of the redundancy that's created as a result of this arrangement ultimately benefits the town moving forward specifically when staff members are on scheduled vacation, out of office for a sick day, transitioning following retirements, or other positional vacancies. Explaining to members of the public that, the CBO is on holidays this week and therefore we can't assist you. That doesn't work. So we're really looking to find opportunities where we can create these interdepartmental redundancies. As a final note to this section, it's worth noting that the service disruptions brought on by COVID-19 have already necessitated a lot of this cross-training, specifically with respect to staff working remotely. And corporate modernization is really required at this point to continue this high level of service. So in summary, it's being recommended that council consider endorsing the compressed workweek plan and the corresponding HR policy on a trial basis until July of 2022. And at that point, unless otherwise directed by council, staff would present a follow-up report, sort of a program evaluation type model, where council would take into account in considering whether or not the program should be terminated at that point, whether or not the trial should be extended, or whether or not it's been a success and warrants permanent adoption. Throughout the trial, it's anticipated that any council or community feedback would be submitted directly to the CAO, with the CAO ultimately ensuring that a compressed workweek arrangement functions in a manner that's mutually beneficial to the community and staff. After all, that is the key objective of this. Ultimately, the transition reflects a corporate commitment to public service excellence for residents, and it supports the continued growth and well-being of town employees, which in turn has proven to translate into increased productivity at the organizational level. And finally, as a part of the direction, staff are recommending that council provide direction at this time to carry out the necessary actions to extend the town hall administration office hours from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday, effective September 13th, 2021. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Josh. Are there any questions for Josh? Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Worship. There's no doubt that this is a huge incentive to the office staff of the town of Aylmer. I'll reiterate the two concerns that I mentioned the first time we talked about that. Number one being the precedent that it sets within the town for the employees to in effect have a long weekend every weekend, and the expectation or the potential expectation that other members within the town's workforce may look at that as something that they may strive to achieve. It was stated that the initial overview of that was that it wasn't practical, but if a number of the town people do have that incentive, I'm pretty confident that other people are going to be striving to get there as well. The second point was on perception. A lot of the majority of people that work in and around the town of Aylmer, in effect, work a 9-to-5 job or shift work. They go in for 8 hours, they come home. They're working basically a 40-hour week over a number of days. And are they going to be disillusioned, resentful that a certain component of the town staff are, as I said, enjoying a 3-day weekend every weekend, and just the perception of two different levels of peoples, if you were, which brings up a question. If every weekend is a long weekend, what happens to the long weekends that are set by provincial or federal statute? Does that make those weekends a 4-day weekend, or how is that handled? If somebody would like to answer that one, I'd appreciate the answer.
Certainly, if I may, Your Worship.
Go ahead, Josh.
Through you and to Councillor Barber, on weeks that we would have a statutory public holiday that's observed by the town, what would happen is that the workforce would revert back to a 5-day work week. So staff would still be credited. However, they wouldn't be credited 8.75 hours for a statutory holiday. They would be credited 7 hours. So on that week, it would be the town's expectation that all staff would attend the office for 4 days of the week and then observe the statutory public holiday. a business as usual, with the model then reverting back to the compressed work week on weeks that don't include a statutory public holiday.
Sorry, I didn't quite understand that. Can you run that one by me one more time, please?
I want to mention something. Sorry, Councillor Barber. Could those of you that aren't using your mics, could you turn them off and just use them when you're speaking? I think that's what Councillor Barber's having problems hearing. I am too. So if you could put yourself on mute, unless like Councillor Barber speaking, so he doesn't have to, and I'm actually going to do it too.
Certainly, Councillor Barber, apologies for the miscommunication there. Just as far as the statutory public holidays go, so as it stands right now, and as proposed in the HR policy, week segments that are impacted by a statutory holiday, as outlined in the town's HR's policies, would revert to a standard 5-day work week. So for example, on September 6th, so Labor Day, staff would be compensated for 7 hours rather than 8.75 hours on the stat credit. And similarly, if a staff member opted to utilize vacation or lieu time during a week that contains a statutory holiday, 7 hours of that vacation or lieu time would be used. So on a statutory holiday that would cause a 3-day weekend, it wouldn't turn into a 4-day weekend. It would still be a 3-day weekend for town staff.
Okay, can I have an understanding then that you're floating that 1 day then? Is that another term?
No. Through your worship and to Councillor Barber, so on the weeks that contain a statutory holiday, the municipal office would still be open from 8 to 5, but the workforce would work 5 days that week. So we would treat it as a regular 5-day work week for all administration staff. So all staff would, if the statutory holiday falls on a Monday, all staff are expected to report to the office or work remotely from Tuesday to Friday, with the Monday being the stat. So it's essentially a 5-day. We revert to a 5-day work week because otherwise, the town would be crediting staff a day off at 8.75 hours when really it's been our practice this far to credit staff 7 hours for a statutory holiday. So we would just revert back, and then the next week when the statutory holiday is over, we would revert to the compressed work week again, business as usual.
Okay, well, thank you for that. In summary, to me, the saving grace of this proposal is the trial period until July, to make sure that any concerns that do develop over that period of time are addressed in the final version to be considered by council at that time. Just a heads up, I am not entirely 100% behind this, and may not vote in support. But as I said, the saving grace is that trial period. Thank you.
Andy, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to also try to provide some explanation to your councillor's concerns about perception. The one thing that the studies have shown, the most recent one that they did out of Iceland, that was the largest municipal employee study done, was that productivity went up, and they didn't do the extra hours. They cut a day out and gave staff that time is free. So we're getting increased productivity, we think, out of this, and we're getting an additional 7 hours. So I do think regardless of what the community or some naysayers might say, it is worthwhile trying this type of innovation. And the worst thing that we're going to get is the same additional hours and more work done over the next year. So I think that's kind of the worst outcome that we're seeing as staff. So, when you do the risk benefit analysis, the benefit here, to my perspective, really outweighs the risks that we're taking of some people who just are, they're always going to think that unless somebody's at their desk at 8:30 in the morning and leaving at 5:30 at night, that not enough work's being done. But I tell you, nowadays, employees can sit at their desk almost and watch YouTube. So it's really important to make sure that people are engaged. And one of the things that we've seen through this remote working experiment that's been going on the last year and a half is staff are working themselves into the ground at home, just trying to, people don't shut off their computers or their phones anymore. It's a 24/7 grind. So having that 3-day weekend, I don't think it really is a 3-day weekend almost, because staff are always on. But that's just me making my pitch along with Josh's for council.
Okay, we've got several hands up. So Councillor Barbara, I'll allow you just if it's a follow-up, and then we'll get other councillors' questions.
Thank you, Your Worship, and it is a follow-up. I trust, Andy, that the things that you just said, which was well said, actually evolve. Thank you.
Okay, we will start with Councillor Chapman and then Councillor Oslach, and I believe Deputy Mayor Andrews, you had your hand up as well, right? Okay, so go ahead, Councillor Chapman.
Your worship, there's many factories that work the continental shift where they work extra hours and only a 4-day week, or they work only the weekend and have the week off. So this isn't a concept that isn't already seen in the community. The bonus is that we'll have longer office hours to facilitate people like me who do work from 9 to 5. So I'll be able to go in at 8 o'clock, and the factory worker who works till 3:30 and doesn't get to town until 4 or 4:30 will have more time to get there. So I think that it's a good idea, and I would like to see in July, when we've done it for a year, see what the outcome is. And the other thing is that it's been proven that when you are more flexible with work hours for employees, they are more productive. So it's not about whether they have a longer weekend or not. It's about how much energy they put into the work when they are in their chair. And that's the bottom line is the productivity when they are working. If they have 3 days to get their head straight to work 4 days, then that's good for them.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Councillor Oslach, you're next.
Yes, Your Worship. I have 2 reservations. I'm really I've mulled this situation over for a last month or so, and I believe I'm not really comfortable with moving the council meetings from Monday to Wednesday, number one. And I think that the ability to access the town staff will be really downgraded, and it will affect services. I believe that the citizens of Aylmer will be not be able to access the town staff, and it's you're going to have a communications problem, because you have to get this out to the townspeople. I don't think I'm really in favor of this procedure bylaw. I really have to think about it, and I've mulled it over dozens of times, and I think change is good for some reasons, and this change, I think, will be detrimental to the town.
Councillor Oslach, actually, we're talking about just the compressed work week plan endorsement. Talking about if the council actual meetings, that'll be our next report, and that will be for the procedural one. So I think maybe you've got it mixed up with one and the other. So did you want to reiterate your statement? Because we will be discussing the date change. That'll be our next report.
Okay, I will just suspend that comment and to the next report.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Andrews, did you have a comment?
Yes, I'll keep it brief. So I'm in full support of this. I mean, there's multiple studies that have been published on this. You know, for retention, staff retention, this is the way that companies are going, municipalities are going. If we want to hang on to the staff that we have, we need to be flexible, and this is a great opportunity to do it. It's not like they're a bunch of teenagers just new into the workforce and they don't know what needs to be done. They know it needs to be done. There's a list. They get the job completed, and someone's there to back them up. So I think we have to trust in our staff that they're going to get the work done, and we have to give them the opportunity to prove it. And I have no concerns with it. If you look at the report, the SWOT approach, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, that is like the solid foundation for determining if things are going to work or not. They've presented the case, so let's give them the opportunity. We'll do the trial run on it, and I'm quite certain that it will be successful. So I'm 100% for this.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Andrews. I'd like to make a comment as well. First of all, I'd like to say that this is very innovative. This is forward thinking, and we can actually be leaders and, maybe help some other municipalities. And because it's a trial, we'll say guinea pigs, right? We're going to try this and see how it works. But I do agree with Deputy Mayor Andrews that, lots and lots of companies are doing this, and I have no problem with this whatsoever. And I think we have to remember the key focus here is we are customer service oriented. That's what we do here. That's what we're doing tonight. We're serving our customers, the residents of Aylmer. So if we can open up our town hall so that our residents and taxpayers have the opportunity to have that extra time that they can come in and get their business done and get their services that they require, we're only adding bonuses to this. I mean, this is a bonus situation here. This is great. So I'm all in favor for it. And I think that our population here, when they realize that they can come in early in the morning or later in the afternoon, they're going to be quite pleased that they can get all their stuff done and they have those extended hours. I say kudos to staff, and thanks for being so innovative and forward thinking. Any further questions? Councillor Charlton.
Your worship, I think it might even catch on around town, and Aylmer could be a trailblazer for the whole community. So I'm sure other businesses could benefit from this program, and but I am glad it's going to be on a trial basis for a year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Charlton. Did you have your hand up, Josh? Sorry, I was wondering if you had another comment.
Through your worship, just a minor item, but I did want to communicate and just remind council that we are in a desirable position right now as far as communicating some of these changes goes. We've had a fairly significant uptake on social media, and we are finding that our post engagement and using that method of communicating with the town, our residents, has been very effective to date. So I'm confident that if this is a direction that council wishes to proceed with, that staff would be able to very effectively and efficiently communicate it with the public and ensure that it's a smooth transition.
Thank you, Josh. And I have to echo that. I think it's amazing what we've been doing. And we should be proud of what we're doing here with this council. We are forward thinking, and we're looking out for our taxpayers and our residents of Aylmer so that they can get the information they need. So we're providing that through Facebook or Twitter or whatever types of social media, as well as having the office open longer and earlier in the morning. I think it's just fantastic. So our people here in town are going to benefit greatly. And as Josh has mentioned, we're already seeing that. So I'm more than pleased with this. Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick comment that this is a trial period. Change is inevitable and generally good. Let's see how it goes.
Okay. So are there any further questions or comments concerning this? Councillor Oslach.
Yes, Your Worship. Could we have a recorded vote?
Yes, most certainly. And when our clerk is ready, then we'll proceed with the vote unless there are other questions or concerns. And I don't believe that anyone has their hand up. So when our clerk is ready, we'll proceed with the vote.
All right, through your worship, we'll proceed with the recorded vote. I'll just reread the resolution. So this is
Okay.
moved by Councillor Charlton, seconded by Councillor Ham, that report Clerk 3121 entitled Compressed Workweek Plan Endorsement be received for information, and that Council endorses the Compressed Workweek and HR Policy Number 11 as presented, and that Council directs staff to take all necessary actions to facilitate implementation of the Compressed Workweek Plan effective September 13th, 2021 for a trial period until July 2022, and further that Council directs staff to undertake the necessary communicative and operational actions to extend the Town Hall administration office hours from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday to Friday to 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday, effective September 13th, 2021. So just starting, Councillor Oslach,
No.
Councillor Barber,
Yes.
Councillor Chapman,
Yes.
Councillor Ham,
Yes.
Mayor French,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Andrews,
Yes.
Councillor Charlton.
Yes.
So by a vote of 5-2, the motion's carried.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the next report, Clerk 2921.
Your worship, on that last matter, that was a recorded vote. Was the count correct?
I'm not sure. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing,
It
Councilor
was set
Barber.
at 5-2. Can the clerk reconfirm that?
I do apologize through you, Madam Chair. I do apologize. It's the vote was 6-1. My apologies.
Thank you. And I was wondering that too. Thank you, Councilor Barber. Like I said, and I'm really sorry, but I'm having problems with my computer this evening. So I'm kind of really having problems here. But anyway, we'll get through it. Okay, so the next report then is Clerk 2921.
Sorry, my apologies. I've got several screens going here, and I agree with the mayor. It's been an interesting evening, technologically speaking. So the resolution for Clerk 2921, this is a deferred report from the previous meeting, and the resolution is that report Clerk 2921, entitled Procedure Bylaw Update, be received for information, and that Council approves recommendations for amendment as outlined in the report Clerk 2921, and that Council directs staff to give notice of intent to amend the procedure bylaw in accordance with the town notice policy, and further that Council directs staff to prepare a procedure bylaw amendment for consideration at the subsequent, which would be the September 13th, 2021 regular virtual meeting of Council.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Ham and Deputy Mayor Andrews. I see your hand there. So, could you just reiterate some of your points in this report, please, Josh?
Certainly, through you, your worship, and two members of council. As a refresher, report Clerk 2921 provided 3 recommendations for amendment to the town's procedure bylaw, which establishes a policy to govern the calling, place, and proceedings of council, and also to provide notice of council meetings. The first recommendation had to do with amending the regular council meeting day, which is section 5.3A, from Monday to Wednesday, with the balance of that section remaining the same. The rationale for this recommendation had to do with allowing an additional 2 days for the public and council to review meeting materials in advance of the council meeting, and additional side benefits that were spoken to at the previous meeting had to do with the elimination of inconsistency in the council meeting schedule brought on by statutory holidays leading to back-to-back meetings, and in addition to also facilitating with staffing for the compressed work week. And I should mention that at this point, the moving of the council meeting day from Monday to Wednesday is by no means mandatory to facilitate the compressed work week. It was a recommendation that had been brought up by staff just for the, I guess, ease of simplicity and for consistent scheduling. The second item that was brought up in terms of recommendations on Clerk 2921 was the deletion of section 10B, which is the section that necessitates a suspension of the procedural policies to proceed with 3 readings of a bylaw. Instead, we would rely solely on section 10A, which states that council shall be provided with a draft copy of all bylaws which are on the agenda for consideration, and that every bylaw should be introduced by a motion and receive 3 readings prior to it being passed. 10A also states that nothing shall prevent council from giving all 3 readings to a bylaw at the same meeting. And again, just to provide a high level of the rationale, it's common practice for staff to produce substantive amendments to bylaws with a corresponding report for information. So the idea is that the informational report would provide context that may not be included in the bylaw itself, and it ensures that council is provided with the most comprehensive and accurate information to guide their decision making. That said, if staff are able to receive council feedback at the information report stage, rather than the final bylaw stage, it can be more efficiently integrated into the final bylaw, which is up for consideration. And I should also add that it would be the general intent of staff to recommend bylaws be read on 2 separate occasions wherever possible, especially in the absence of a preliminary information report, public meeting, hearing, etc. And finally, the 3rd recommendation had to do with how we manage the consent agenda. So this recommendation had to do with recommending a bi-weekly information package that's circulated by email and posted on the town website, which would contain municipal association communications and general circulation municipal resolution notices. So again, we should note that any correspondence that's received that's directed to the town or from a member of Elgin County would automatically be included on the consent agenda. But by circulating this informational package in advance, it does help to manage some of the town's responsibility with respect to our obligations under the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. Currently, any document that we're publishing on the agenda requires a fair bit of administrative work to ensure that it's accessible and readable by a screen reader. And it's WCAG 2.0 is the standard that we have to adhere to. So basically, the recommendation here would be to circulate this separate information package twice a month so that council, senior staff, the community would be able to speak directly to items that they would like to see on the consent agenda. And that would also offer time for council and staff to do background research and perhaps have more substantive and informed discussions about some of these resolutions or different pieces of correspondence that are being directed our way. And finally, I should add that package would be published on the Friday following a council meeting, which would in essence allow 5 days to request an item be added on to that agenda. And with that, happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Are there questions for Josh? Councillor Charlton?
I didn't realize just how much work was involved to make a meeting like this accessible. I didn't realize how accessible it had to be. So it was kind of enlightening on my behalf to find out the work that's involved to make this meeting accessible. So it would be closed caption, or it would be read to you if you're. I'm not just sure what all goes on, Josh.
Certainly, if I may, Your Worship.
Go ahead.
And to Councillor Charlton, in advance of a meeting, the deputy clerk would undertake this on all of our correspondence. So what he's using is a tool in Adobe Acrobat. So for instance, anytime that there's an image in a staff report, the deputy clerk is ensuring that there's metadata on that image so that when you hover over it on your screen with the screen reader, it would, your screen reader would read image of dog. In the same way, we want to ensure that all of our margins and all of our documentation is prepared in a way that is fully accessible. And while we're able to, remediate documents upon request, it's our general practice to try to ensure that the documents that we're including, we don't want people to have to request it. We'd rather just provide it that way. And I think the point we're trying to make here is that a lot of times when we produce documents, staff are aware of these obligations and take them into account in their Word formatting. However, when we're receiving documents from external agencies, even other municipalities, often they're not set to the same standard that the town of Aylmer is making documents accessible to. And that at times can be a little bit labor intensive for the deputy clerk that would end up spending 5, 10, maybe even onwards of 20 or 25 minutes to make a specific document accessible for posting on the agenda.
Yes. Thank you. I didn't realize that, and it's I appreciate the work that you do. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Chapman?
It's in regards to the Wednesday meeting. I still, 5:30 is, it's a little early, and I still don't understand why it gets changed during the summer. And I would request that it remain at 7, and hopefully others would agree to that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Chapman. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Your Worship. As regarding the summer issue, I personally appreciate the opportunity to do things in the evenings in the July, August months that we don't have a chance to do because of weather the rest of the year. To me, the earlier time works well. As far as the moving of the date from Monday to Wednesday, I'm having some challenges wrapping my arms around that. Does anyone have anything else that they can add that would comfort those thoughts?
Andy?
Through you, staff and myself, we had a lot of discussion after the meeting in the summer, our last meeting where this was deferred from, because I know that was a lot of technical issues, so everybody didn't hear the discussion, but I heard it on my end. And the one thing that we did want to more clearly put into the amendments when we brought forward the next report was that part of the main reason for doing it would be to allow the public more time to comment and to get delegation requests in. So I don't think that was clear in the last way we presented it, because essentially if we're moved right now, we issue agendas on Thursdays. If a member of the public doesn't read it on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, they can't really get in to comment even with a letter. But what we do want to do is we want to give people the opportunity to file a delegation request to speak to any item on the agenda on up to the end of the day on Monday, and then we would present that to council as a change to the agenda for you to consider. So we're one of the main points of doing it is not just to give council more time, it's to give the public more time to comment and to have input and to be able to speak to council. Right now, you guys probably get phone calls or emails right before the meeting where people are commenting, and our intent is to try to make that so that that isn't the way it goes, that the public can actually come. And it's pretty important in the way we do things because we go directly to council with all our reports. So we don't have a period for sober second thoughts. This is the one shot that the public gets to say, we don't want that decision to go that way. And thankfully, council makes all the right decisions all the time and nothing's ever contentious. So we never have to do reconsiderations, but there is a potential for that in the current structure. So I think that is the one thing that we didn't really get into enough last time. And it was probably because of the technical issues.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Oslach.
Yes, Your Worship. I'm trying to get my head around moving council from Monday to the Wednesday. I'm not quite in favor of that, the way I feel. Okay, that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Oslach. I guess the only thing I can mention is, and I mean, it's up to council what you want to do, but we have to keep in mind that we do change our procedural policies from time to time. And if we did choose to pick Wednesday, we certainly could adjust the time in the summer, maybe to help Councillor Chapman. Maybe we could make a 6 o'clock meeting instead of 5:30 or something, like compromise. But I think we all have to keep focused. This isn't carved in stone. If tonight we decide that we're going to try this, we can always come back and say, you know what, Wednesdays aren't working. We thought it was going to be great, but it's just not working. So maybe we need to do something different, whether that's go back to what we were doing or try something new. I mean, I don't care which way we go. I mean, if you want to have Monday meetings, that's fine. We've been doing that for years. But if you want to try something different, so it does allow the public more time, and I'm hoping council understands the logistics behind that. So technically, if someone doesn't like something now, they can call council, but they can't come as a delegation. This would actually give them the opportunity to contact our clerk by Monday at noon, and they could be put on the agenda so that they could be a delegation. So they could actually speak to all the issues that we're talking about on the exact same night. So it's none of the when we get, and I'm sure all of you get calls after council, why did you approve this particular thing, or what's going on with this? This would just give the residents better opportunity that they can just come and speak to us all at one time. So, I mean, it's something to think about. And like I say, it doesn't matter to me. I'm fine with whatever council chooses, but we certainly can change this. If we try it and we don't like it, we can change it. Deputy Mayor Andrews, did you have a comment?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Your Worship. Did we not used to start our summer meetings earlier? Weren't they initially at 4:30?
At one point they were 3 or 3:30. Yeah, actually years ago we had them around 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the summer, and we had I guess it was 3 or 3:30.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that the last term of council I thought it was 4:30, and maybe we changed partway through. Regardless, I'd like to see them stay at 5:30. I'm in complete agreement with the Wednesday proposal dates for the meetings, just because of the reasons stated in the report. But I'm happy to also accommodate. But I like the report as written.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Andrews. Any further comments? Because we have to be clear what we're voting on. Councillor Chapman.
I know I'm not the only councillor, I realize this. But moving forward into the future, if it remains at on Wednesdays or whatever day, for those that work, 5:30 is very early. But not only that, I'm a diabetic, and mealtime is a difficult thing. So having meetings at 5:30, it kind of messes with the diabetic.
Yeah.
So I have two reasons for it, and I don't expect everyone to change for me, but in the future, we don't know who our counselors will be, and that's something that should be considered. I know that you guys like having your time in the summers, but we have 2 meetings during the summer, 1 each month. If as a working person, I would have to not take clients 2 hours before the meeting in order to be finished and wrapped up with them to move on to the meeting. Someone who's working in a factory and a counselor, they might not get home until 4:30. So I don't know about you, but in order for me to do this, I have to prepare my head to be here. And so that is my reasoning for a 7 o'clock meeting. So that's, I mean, you guys can do whatever you choose to, but that's why I choose what I did. Thank you.
Right, and thank you, Councillor Chapman. And again, just reiterating this, when a new council's elected, and that'll be coming up before we know it, next year, they can make those decisions, what works for them, because you're absolutely correct. We don't know who will be sitting around the council table next December. And so The point is they may need something totally different because of their work schedules. So we've got to keep focused that this is just something that's working for our council right now. So if we can make this work, and we know we only have one more summer, you know, and maybe we can compromise, like I said, somehow, maybe at 6 o'clock or something, kind of put it in the middle between typical 7 and, you know, 5:30, what we do now. I'm so sure we could work something out, and we just have to keep focusing that this is only for our council, because other councils have every prerogative. They can do whatever they want. They can change whatever day, time, or whatever. So I guess, Josh, do you have anything further to add?
Through your worship, I just wanted to add that as council is aware, and as you've stated, staff routinely update the procedure bylaw. Generally, you know, just as far as we keep up with the relevant legislation that impacts it, a council will recall the emergency management legislation that did necessitate a procedure bylaw amendment, and at the request and you know, feedback that's received. So you know, during within this report, the summer meeting schedule is not currently within the scope of it. Not to say that it couldn't be added to a resolution, but what I might recommend is that council consider perhaps just leaving staff with some direction to consider the summer meeting schedule. It might offer us the opportunity to review best practices from some other municipalities and how they manage it. And I think it would certainly be appropriate, you know, council willing, for staff to bring that item back for consideration. I mean, after all, we are through the summer now, and you know, perhaps we could bring that one back for consideration at a later date.
Okay, thank you, Josh. With that, are there any further questions or comments? And we've got different components to this particular report, so we've got to make sure we're all kind of on the same page with all the components of the report. Is there any specific item that you may want to, you know, pull out, or you think it needs to be reworded or something added to it? We just kind of have to be clear so that Josh he may have to reword it a bit. Or are we okay? Are we ready to vote as it stands? Okay, what I'll ask you to do, if you don't mind, Josh, is could you read the recommendation, please?
Certainly, through your worship. The recommendation is moved by Councillor Ham, seconded by Deputy Mayor Andrews, that report Clerk 2921 entitled Procedure Bylaw Update be received for information, and that council approves recommendations for amendment as outlined in report Clerk 2921, and that council directs staff to give notice of intent to amend the procedure bylaw in accordance with the town notice policy, and further that council directs staff to prepare a procedure bylaw amendment for consideration at the September 13th, 2021 regular virtual meeting of council.
Okay, with that, if there's no further questions or comments, we're going to vote. So all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Josh. The next item up is new business and matters of urgency. Okay, seeing none. We'll move into readings of bylaws, first and second readings.
That council gives first and second reading to bylaw 4521, being a bylaw to regulate open air burning in the town of Elmer, and bylaw 4621, being a bylaw to adopt the records retention schedule for the town of Elmer.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Charlton, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item up is to suspend procedural policies.
That council suspends the procedural policies to proceed with three readings of bylaw 4721, being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an agreement for the Elk Street Reconstruction Engineering Services contract, and bylaw 4821, being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an agreement between the town of Elmer and the Bank of Montreal for the extension of banking services.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Oslach and Councillor Barber, are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And now three readings, please.
That council approves and gives three readings to bylaw 4721, being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an agreement for the Elk Street Reconstruction Engineering Services contract, and bylaw 4821 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an agreement between the Town of Aylmer and the Bank of Montreal for the extension of banking services.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Chapman, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Inquiries by members? Okay, seeing none. Statements and committee reports. Oh, sorry, did you have an inquiry, Councillor Charlton?
I did. I was just turning my mic on and I shut my camera off.
Oh, sorry.
That's
Go
right.
ahead, Councillor Charlton.
Through your worship, I've heard nothing but good comments about Clarence Street. Everybody is so pleased about the reconstruction of Clarence Street, and I just wanted to pass that on. And even the small details like putting a small pavement ramp between the curb, which is still down about 2 inches, where they're going to pave the second coat. You know, that speaks volumes of the quality of work that they've done. And I just wanted to pass that on, that I've heard nothing but great things about the reconstruction of Clarence Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other inquiries? Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Worship. Over the last few weeks, I've had an opportunity to work in a portion of the province that I had either lived or worked around, but never actually been right in the center of. And during the off time, I took the time to, speak to the people in the coffee shops and stuff like that. They all share the same thing that we do in Aylmer, the pride of your community, the good things that are happening in and around their municipalities. And I just in a moments of weakness began to read some of the council reports in the local newspapers, and it's interesting to see the challenges that that go on in any community are not that much different from where we are. But what impressed me the most was when we come back, or when I came back, looking around Aylmer. Not only do we share the pride in this community, but the whole town seems to have given itself a shot in the arm over time to rebuild their houses, to update them. The services are progressively getting better and stronger. We should be grateful and relish every opportunity that we have to shout out where we live. We're lucky. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barber. Are there any other inquiries by members? Okay, statements and committee reports. Councillor Oslach. I think you're on mute, Councillor Oslach.
Sorry, Your Worship.
That's
I'd
okay.
like to talk about the town of Aylmer, the beautification, and I think the Parks Department has done a wonderful job this year. Our bridge baskets are fantastic, and our streets are really, really good, and our hanging baskets are good, and our parks are really, really green. Of course, we had a lot of rain, of course, to make them green, but our flower beds around the cenotaph are phenomenal. I think the Parks Department has used, basically, I think we should applaud the Parks Department and Tom Poland. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Oslach. Are there any further statements or committee reports? Okay, seeing none. Report of the mayor. I just kind of want to reiterate as well what some of the other councillors have been saying. I've been out and around to some events. There's been some open houses and farmer markets, and just the vibe in town. It's great to see things starting to get back to normal, and so there's been some nice events, and so I've really enjoyed meeting some. We've got some new businesses here in town, And as some of the councilors have mentioned, the beautification, it's just amazing what's been going on. And, you know, we are blessed to live in Aylmer, and we have fantastic people that live here. And it's a kind and caring community. And I will shout out to the Morav Underground Band. They usually do an event at the park, as you well know. Because of COVID, they couldn't, so they did an online musical, and they raised hundreds of dollars for our food bank and hundreds of pounds of food. Also, there was a fundraising barbecue in Aylmer at the farmers market, and I believe they raised $1,000 for mental health. So, you know, these are just some of the things that are going on, and there's going to be a musical at the fairgrounds. If you haven't heard, it's August the 21st, so they're bringing in some local talent for that. So it's kind of nice to see our community getting back to some normalcy, and I can't say enough about this community. So I reiterate what our councilors have said. We should be very grateful that we live here. And are there any notices of motion? Seeing none, we need a resolution for meeting closed to the public.
Okay. That council moves into a meeting closed to the public at 7:08 p.m. to discuss the following matters. Item 15.1, Chief Administrative Officer report CAO 3921 respecting employment relations matters. Item 15.2, Chief Administrative Officer report CAO 4421 respecting a lease termination on 105 White Street in the town of Aylmer. And item 15.3, Chief Administrative Officer report CAO 4121 respecting an update on land disposition on Talbot Street. And these items are pursuant to section 239(2)(a), C, D, E, and F of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. As the subject matter pertains to the security of the property of the municipality or the local board, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality, labor relations or employee negotiations, litigation or potential litigation, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Ham. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. And we'll just take a moment to move into closed session. Thank you.
This conference is no longer being recorded.